Welcome to Taste of Revenge. If you're into cold revenge and dark justice, hit that subscribe and like button. This story will haunt you.
I always thought I raised my daughter right. Not to be rich, not to be famous, just to be kind, to know where she came from, to never look down on anyone for what they had or didn't. My name is Teresa Alvarez. I'm 57, a widow, a former house cleaner, and a damn good cook. I never had much, but I had enough. A roof, pride, a daughter who I believed loved me for who I was. But that belief shattered with one phone call, 3 weeks before her wedding. "Mom, I don't think it's a good idea for you to come." I blinked. Why wouldn't I come? She hesitated, then said it, like ripping a bandage from a wound she didn't think I could feel. "You're just not exactly the image we want to present." I didn't cry, I didn't yell. I canceled the venue by sundown, the caterer the next morning. And by the weekend, her wedding was gone, erased like a chalk drawing in the rain. And that was just the beginning. Justice had to be served, and pride corrected. You won't believe what happened next. Before we go further, if you're enjoying my story, please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from. I'd love to hear from you. Am I familia? I didn't tell her right away. I let her believe everything was still on schedule. I sent her a text that night. "So excited to see you in your dress next week, Mija." She responded with a heart emoji. The nerve. I stayed silent as she posted her bridesmaid boxes on Instagram, tagged the vendors I had booked, flaunted the countdown clock to a wedding I was quietly unraveling thread by thread. It wasn't hard. I'd been the one handling every deposit, every email. She didn't want to seem unpolished, so she left the boring details to me. The florist didn't ask questions, just thanked me for the business and returned my deposit minus a small fee. The photographer offered condolences, asked if I needed a referral to another vendor. The cake decorator was disappointed but understanding. It took 48 hours to reverse 4 months of planning. She still hadn't told me the whole truth, but I didn't need her to. I saw the posts. Her fiancé's family, wine-stained country club types, praising her for elevating the ceremony and keeping it tasteful. One aunt even commented, "So glad it'll be just the right kind of guests." The right kind. That stung. I was the wrong kind, apparently. The kind that cleaned houses and cooked spicy food and didn't go to college. Funny how quick they forgot that my wrong kind of money paid for their satin napkins and crystal champagne flutes. I raised that girl on a Roscom polo and hand-me-down clothes. I walked to night shifts when we couldn't afford gas. I went without new shoes for 6 years so she could have ballet lessons and a prom dress that made her cry with joy. But now, I didn't fit her aesthetic. So I adjusted the budget. With every refund, I moved a little money into my savings account. The honeymoon suite at the Vineyard Hotel? Gone. Her custom calligraphy menus? Canceled. The rehearsal brunch, that was basically just an excuse to impress Ethan's friends? Slashed. By the end of the week, I'd recovered over $11,000. She didn't notice. Emily was too busy crafting her bridal content. A ring close-up with a latte in hand, a stage shot of her crying at a first look with her maid of honor, a video saying, "My mom's handling everything, she's amazing." Yes, mija, I am, but not in the way you think. And I didn't do it to hurt her. Not at first. At first it was about boundaries. About reminding her that love doesn't come with a price tag, but neither does disrespect. But then the letter arrived. A pale pink envelope with gold calligraphy. Not addressed to me. No, it was addressed to Teresa Alvarez and guest. Guest? Like I was some distant aunt or coworker she felt obligated to include. Inside, a card reading. Formal attire required. Please refrain from casual accessories. Seating will be assigned by family tier. Family tier. Like I was in the clearance section of her bloodline. Like I hadn't bled to get her here. I sat down at the kitchen table and laughed until I cried. because that's when I knew this wasn't just a wedding. This was a performance, and she didn't want me in the spotlight. So I gave her the spotlight, all of it, and I took the stage away. I didn't call her, I didn't text. Instead, I waited. 1 week before the wedding, she called me, frantic. "Mom, the venue said payment hasn't cleared yet. They're holding the date, but did something happen?" I kept my voice calm. "Oh, that's strange. Let me look into it." "Please," she said, sighing. "You know how Ethan's family is. They already think we're cutting it close. They wanted to help, but I told them my mom's got it all covered." She really said that, like it was a badge of honor, me covering it all. I told her I'd call her back. Then I called the venue again, this time not to cancel, but to confirm. No payment, no booking. The date would be released to the next client in 48 hours. I waited until exactly 47 hours had passed. Then I called her back. "Mija," I said, "I tried, but they've already given the spot to another couple. These things move fast." Silence. "What do you mean?" she said, voice sharp. "You said you were handling it." "I was," I said softly, "but things change. I had to make some decisions." "Mom, the wedding is in 6 days." "I know." "You promised." "I know." That was when her voice cracked. "You're ruining everything." I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the invitation. The one with family tier printed in pastel ink. And suddenly, I didn't feel bad at all. I reminded her that the dress shop had a beautiful garden in back. She could do something small, intimate. She said nothing and hung up. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from her maid of honor. "Hi, Miss Alvarez. Emily's not in a good place. We're trying to help her rebook everything, but it's a mess. The cake is gone, the DJ's canceling, and Ethan's parents are asking questions. If there's anything you can do." I saved the message. Then I played it again. And again. Because for 5 years, I had been nothing but what they needed. The backup plan. The wallet. The background. Now I was finally the one thing they'd never let me be. The center of the story. If you think that was the revenge, you don't know what revenge looks like yet. Because her wedding wasn't ruined. Not really. Not until the truth came out. In front of everyone. And I was the one who made sure they heard it. The wedding day came anyway. Not the vineyard estate. Not the $30,000 vision board. They moved it to the backyard of Ethan's parents' second home. A big house with too many mirrors and not enough soul. Plastic folding chairs, fake eucalyptus centerpieces, food trays delivered by a catering truck that arrived 2 hours late. I wasn't invited. Not officially. But I went. I wore the same navy blue dress I'd planned on wearing to the original venue. Nothing flashy. But I wore my pearls. The ones I'd bought with my first real paycheck cleaning houses back in '92. I arrived just before the ceremony. Guests were seated. Music was playing. Emily was somewhere inside. People turned when I walked in. They knew who I was, even if they didn't want to admit it. "Teresa," someone said, awkward. "We didn't know you were coming." I smiled. Neither did Emily. They shifted in their seats. I kept walking. At the edge of the makeshift aisle, I saw Ethan's parents. His mother was wearing white. White at her son's wedding. I almost laughed. She turned when she saw me, eyes narrowing. "You're not on the list." "Good," I said. "I didn't come to sit." "Then why are you here?" "To deliver something." I handed her a plain envelope. Inside, copies of every invoice, the venue, the vendors, the checks, all in my name, all canceled with my signature. "Ask your son if he knew who was paying for his wedding," I said. And I walked away. I didn't wait for the ceremony. I didn't need to. Because I knew what would happen when she opened that envelope, when the guests heard raised voices, when Emily saw it and realized I had just pulled back the curtain. The wedding happened, but barely. And that night, after the sparkler exit and the badly edited Instagram reel, I got a message. From Ethan. It just said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I didn't reply, but I whispered, "You're welcome," and poured myself a glass of wine. The next morning, Emily came to my door. She didn't knock. She just stood there, in sweatpants and smeared mascara. "I want to know why," she said. "You know why. I trusted you." "No," I said. "You used me, and you forgot I was paying attention." She shook her head, furious. "You humiliated me." I folded my arms. "You made me invisible first." Silence. Then she said, "I didn't mean for it to get so far. I didn't think." "That's the problem. You didn't think. You let them turn you into someone I don't recognize. You let their standards erase your memory of where you came from." Tears welled up. I almost reached for her, but I didn't. She whispered, "I was scared." "Of what?" "That they'd judge me, that I wouldn't belong." "You never needed their approval. You already belonged to me, to us." Another silence. Then she asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Can I fix this?" I looked at her for a long time. My daughter, my blood. And I saw the girl I'd raised in there somewhere. But fixing it wouldn't be easy. "You can try," I said. "But first, you apologize. To me and to yourself." She nodded, and for the first time in years, she looked honest. "I'm sorry, Mama." And that was a start. Emily didn't talk to Ethan for 2 days after that. I didn't ask why, but I knew. Sometimes a person starts waking up, and everything around them suddenly feels strange, off, artificial. That's what happens when the fog lifts. You realize the life you thought was perfect was just expensive, wrapping around something hollow. On the 3rd day, she showed up again. No makeup, hoodie, no designer bag on her arm. "He told me I embarrassed his family," she said, standing in my kitchen doorway. I was slicing onions. I didn't stop. "Did you?" She shook her head. "I told him the truth, that I forgot what love looked like, that I let people who don't know me tell me how to treat the woman who raised me." "And?" He said I was overreacting. That real family doesn't air dirty laundry. Then he asked if I still wanted to go on the honeymoon. I chuckled without smiling. Romantic. She leaned against the counter. I said no. I put the knife down, looked her in the eyes. "Was that hard?" "Yeah," she said. "But not as hard as losing you." That one landed. I sat down. She sat beside me. "You think it's too late?" she asked. "No," I said, "but it has to come from you. Every step, you decide who you are now. What if I don't know anymore?" Then you start by remembering who you were. The girl who used to cry when we watched movies where moms and daughters fought. The one who made me birthday cards by hand 'cause store ones weren't good enough. She gave a small laugh, wiped her eyes. "I miss her." Then bring her back. That was the day I knew I hadn't lost my daughter. Not forever. But the story doesn't end there. Because when you embarrass the wrong kind of people, the proud, the powerful, the privileged, they don't forget. They plot. They push back. They pretend to forgive, but really, they prepare. You'd think that would have been the end of it. But that was just the calm before the storm. Because Ethan's mother wasn't done. And what she did next nearly cost me everything. It started with a letter. A typed one, no return address, slipped under my front door. A formal-sounding message, signed anonymous, saying I was not safe around grandchildren and emotionally unstable. At first, I laughed. Then I reread it. They were calling me unfit, dangerous, implying things that, if whispered loud enough, could stick like wet paint. A week later, my old boss at the cleaning company, the one I'd retired from, called me. "Teresa," he said carefully, "someone called the office asking about your employment history. Weird questions, accusations, said you stole once. Just thought you should know." I hadn't worked there in 7 years, and I left on good terms. That's when I realized this wasn't gossip. This was war. Ethan's family was trying to bury me in shame, quietly, with deniability. But they underestimated one thing: me. Because you can only tear down a woman who still cares what you think. And I had nothing left to lose. They wanted to bury me quietly. Whispers, hints, anonymous letters slipped under my door. Accusations that I was emotionally unstable, unfit to be around children, and a bitter woman unable to let go. They didn't say my name in public. No, they weren't that brave. Instead, they called old contacts of mine, left voicemails with questions, pretended to be concerned friends. One day I got a call from Father Louis, the priest who officiated my husband's funeral. "Teresa," he said gently, "I don't know who's saying these things, but I want you to know I don't believe a word of it." I didn't ask what things he meant. I already knew. It was never about the wedding. It was about control, about reminding me of my place. And the more I stayed quiet, the more they'd think I'd accept it. So I didn't stay quiet. I gathered everything. Printouts of the texts. Screenshots of social media posts where Ethan's cousin called me toxic. The email Emily forwarded me, the one from Ethan's aunt, saying I was manipulating her. Then I wrote a letter. Not angry, not emotional, just the truth. 4 pages long. Addressed to every person on their side of the family, the ones who'd been invited to the wedding I wasn't welcome at. I told them everything. How I raised Emily alone after her father died. How I saved every penny to help her get into college. How I covered the deposit for the venue and was later downgraded to avoid embarrassing the in-laws. I included copies of receipts. The original wedding planner contract. A photo of the tiered guest list, highlighted, circled, dated. Then I ended it with this. If standing up for myself makes me the villain in your story, then I'll gladly play the part. Just don't forget who funded the production. I sent one to every name on that RSVP list. Printed, stamped, delivered. Emily asked me if I was sure. I said yes. Because the truth is, like fire, it doesn't ask permission to burn. The fallout came fast. One by one, people started calling. Some to apologize, some to distance themselves. One woman left a voicemail crying, saying she had no idea. Ethan's family was furious. They accused me of trying to ruin reputations. I didn't respond. Because reputations built on lies deserve ruin. 2 weeks later, Emily showed up again. "Ethan wants to talk," she said. I looked at her face. She was tired. Not sad, not broken, just tired of pretending. I asked, "Do you want to marry him?" She took a long breath. I wanted the idea of him, the life, the approval. I thought if I had all that, I'd be safe. And now? She looked down at her hands. Now I just want peace. And I don't think he comes with it. I didn't say anything. I just made her tea. 2 days later, she ended the engagement. There was no big fight, no screaming, just a single text she sent me afterward. I thought I needed a wedding. Turns out I needed a mother. That was the day I cried. Not out of sadness, out of relief. A month later, we hosted a dinner. Not a wedding, not a spectacle, just family. Emily cooked. I helped. Rosa brought dessert. My neighbor lent us extra chairs. No tears. No expectations. And when Emily stood up and raised her glass, she didn't give a speech. She just looked at me and said, "Thank you for never letting me forget who I am." I didn't say anything, but I didn't have to. The peace was loud enough. Emily started coming by more often after that. Not every day, not always for long, but when she came, she stayed. Sometimes she brought leftovers, asking if they were as good as yours. Sometimes she brought questions about life, about my past, about the kind of woman I was before motherhood swallowed me whole. One evening in April, she sat on the porch, swing beside me with 2 glasses of wine. She swirled hers thoughtfully before saying, "Did you ever regret having me?" The question didn't sting. It landed softly, like a petal. "No," I said. "Never." "Even when Dad died?" "Especially then," I said. "You were the only reason I got out of bed." She leaned her head on my shoulder, like she used to as a child. "You know," she said after a long pause, "he always made me feel like I was lucky he picked me." "Ethan?" She nodded. It was subtle, but it was always there, like he was doing me a favor by loving me. I took a sip of wine. "That's not love." "I know," she said. "I didn't know then, but I do now." She was healing. I could see it. The girl I'd raised was re-emerging, not just softer, but sharper too, wiser. But Ethan's family hadn't disappeared. No, like a weed, they kept coming back. Quieter this time, cautious, but present. A birthday card came in the mail, by mistake. Then a mutual acquaintance told me Ethan's mother had started reaching out to Emily again. Pity texts. Guilt-laced check-ins. "She's trying to rewrite history," Emily told me one night, looking exhausted, saying I misunderstood her, that she never wanted to exclude you. I laughed, dry. "Let me guess. Now you're the ungrateful daughter, and I'm the manipulative mother." Her silence was confirmation. "She wants to meet," Emily said quietly, "for coffee, just her and me." I waited. "She says she just wants to talk, no pressure." I didn't answer right away, because part of me wanted to say no, to tell her those people don't deserve another ounce of her energy. But I remembered what it felt like to want closure, even from people who didn't deserve it. "Go," I said, "but don't go for her, go for yourself. And don't let her twist it." She nodded. "If she tries anything." "You'll walk out," I said, "and you'll know that doesn't make you rude, it makes you whole." The next day, Emily went to that coffee shop. She came home with red-rimmed eyes and silence in her bones. She didn't say much that night. Just hugged me in the kitchen. Tight, long. The kind of hug that says thank you and I'm sorry and I see it now all at once. Whatever was said between them, I didn't need to know. Because she'd made her choice. Not just to leave Ethan, but to stop seeking love from people who only give it on a leash. And that would have been enough for me. But life had one more surprise left. A very expensive, very fragile surprise. It started with a knock on my door one Thursday morning. A delivery man stood on my porch, holding a clipboard and a long rectangular package. "You Teresa Alvarez?" "Yes." "Sign here." I did, cautiously. He handed me the package and left. Inside was a painting. A large, ornate, hand-framed oil painting of Emily, in her engagement dress, standing beside Ethan and his parents. It was stiff, formal, painted in that faux regal style rich families think makes them timeless. But someone had vandalized it. Across the center, in sweeping red brushstrokes, were the words, "Blood doesn't buy obedience." My heart stopped. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, but the back of the canvas was scribbled with more text. A message. "Thought you should have the portrait you paid for. We're getting a new one, smaller. Without you in the background. Charlotte, Ethan's mom." Emily saw it later that day. Her face went blank as she read the note. Then she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. Loud, hard, honest. "This woman is out of her mind," she said. "Do you realize what this cost? Easily $4,000, maybe more." "She's not trying to insult me," I said. "She's trying to bait you." "Well, she's going to be really disappointed." We didn't throw the painting away. We kept it. Hung it in the garage, a trophy, a reminder. Not of pain, but of survival. It didn't end there. No, this story isn't about one dramatic fallout. It's about the slow, beautiful build back. Emily started working part-time at a local youth shelter, volunteering at first. Then they offered her a position. She said she wanted to be around people who didn't care what label her purse had, Rosa joked one night. She stopped wearing heels, started wearing sneakers. traded her Audi in for a used Subaru, started cooking again. Sometimes we burned the rice, sometimes we argued over the music in the kitchen. But we were real. And being real is the one thing Ethan's family never managed to be. One day, Emily sat down across from me and said, "I want to travel. Not for photos, not to prove anything, just to learn." I smiled. "Where to?" "Anywhere with people who don't know my last name." She went to Lisbon first, then Istanbul, then Bangkok. She sent postcards from every city, real ones, stamped, written in pen. The last one she sent read, "You were right, Mom. Peace doesn't come from approval. It comes from knowing you're enough, even when no one's clapping." I cried again that day, this time from joy. And now, I'm not a villain. I'm not a victim either. I'm a mother who drew a line, who let it cost her everything and gained more than she ever imagined. Because the peace, it didn't just come. I chose it. And I'd choose it again. Emily came back from her travels different. Not broken, not lost, just stripped of everything she didn't need. She wore secondhand denim, bought pottery from street vendors, spoke about things like patience and time like they were currency more valuable than dollars. I sat on a rooftop in Fez for 3 hours, she told me one night. Didn't check my phone once. "Were you with someone?" She smiled. "A cat." I laughed. "Sounds like my kind of company." We'd grown into a rhythm again, not the old one, a new one, adult to adult, mother to daughter, yes, but also woman to woman. That summer, we turned the spare room into a studio. Emily started making jewelry, not to sell, just to make. Clay beads, twine, recycled metals. "You're building something no one can take," I told her one evening. She paused, hands still, pliers in midair. "I think that's what this was all about," she said, realizing the difference between what's mine and what was given to me in exchange for silence. She didn't say Ethan's name anymore. She didn't need to. And for a long time, neither did I. Until one afternoon in August, when Rosa came over with a tight look on her face and a folded piece of paper in her hand. "What is it?" I asked. She handed it over. "It was taped to the back of your mailbox." I opened it. It was a wedding invitation. Not Emily's. Ethan's. He was getting married, again. To someone named Annalise Marie Caldwell. Destination wedding, Tuscany. Gold embossed lettering. Formal attire requested. I stared at it for a long time. Not out of hurt, not out of jealousy. Out of morbid curiosity. On the back was a handwritten note. "I hope you've healed. We have. No hard feelings. E&A. No hard feelings." Emily found it later on the kitchen counter. She read it once, then put it back in the envelope. Then she said, "I hope they have a beautiful wedding." I looked at her, and I hope the mother-in-law gets exactly what she deserves. We both burst out laughing. And that was that. No response, no vengeance, no second round of war. Because sometimes the truest revenge is silence. Sometimes the only answer to people who try to tear you down is to live so well they can't stand it. Last week, I hung a new photo on the wall. It's of me and Emily in the kitchen, aprons dusted with flour, both of us mid-laugh. You can't see what we're laughing about, but you can see that we are laughing. Free, unpolished, loud. And if anyone ever asks what forgiveness looks like, real forgiveness, I'll point to that photo. Because healing didn't make us smaller. It made us louder, braver, hungrier. And the life we built afterward? It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. From the first bruise to the last breath of peace. Every step of it was earned. And we'd do it again. Together.
If that hit you deep, imagine what's coming next.
Subscribe, like, and welcome to Taste of Revenge.